Nobody talks about what it feels like when your family forgets you exist. For 15 straight years, 15, I spent Christmas alone. Not because I was busy, not because I didn't care, but because I was never invited. My name is Yolina, I'm 32 now. And every December 25th, while the rest of my family clinked glasses and laughed by the ocean, I sat in a quiet apartment, scrolling through Instagram like a ghost watching the living. Same house, same people, same matching red sweaters, and every single year one person missing. Me. The photos always dropped on December 26th, never Christmas morning, almost like they didn't want me asking questions too early. 23 people packed into my grandmother's beach house. Smiles wide, arms linked, gifts stacked high, and every year I stared at my phone thinking the same thing. What did I do wrong? I never got an answer. Not once. No apology. No explanation. Not even a text that said, "Hey, we forgot." Just silence. The first time it happened, I was 17. Still a kid. I remember refreshing Facebook like my life depended on it. And there it was, my entire family together. I called my mom that night. "Mom, why wasn't I invited to Christmas?" She sighed. Like I was being dramatic. "Oh honey, we thought you were with your college prep group. Didn't I tell you?" She didn't. The next year it was. "Why assumed you were working?" Then. The group text must not have gone through. Then my personal favorite. "You're always welcome. Why didn't you just come?" Yeah, why didn't I just crash a party I wasn't invited to? I actually tried once. I was 23. Drove 4 hours to the Outer Banks without telling anyone, no announcement, no warning, just hope. I knocked on the door. My mother opened it, and her face drained of color. Not joy, not surprise, fear. Like she'd just seen something that wasn't supposed to exist. Behind her, I heard my sister Meredith's voice, loud and clear. Did anyone actually invite her? 23 people turned and stared at me like I'd broken into a private event. My mom recovered fast. She always did. "Of course you're welcome, honey. Come in." But here's the thing, you can feel when a welcome isn't real. The whispers, the looks, the chair that somehow never appeared at the dinner table. I left the next morning. And I never tried again. After that, Christmas became survival. No decorations, no family dinners. Just takeout containers and my phone lighting up with reminders that everyone else belonged somewhere. 15 years of being erased. Until January. Last January, my grandmother died. I didn't find out from my mother, or my sister, or anyone who shared my last name. I found out from Facebook. A cousin I barely knew posted a photo of Grandma smiling in her garden. Rest in peace, Aunt Viv. I sat there staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring. It didn't. The funeral was 3 days later. I drove 4 hours straight. No sleep, no directions, just instinct. When I arrived, the service had already started. No one told me the time changed. I slipped into the back row like a stranger at my own bloodline's goodbye. My mom never turned around. My sister glanced at me once, then looked away. After the burial, I tried to approach my mother. She looked at me like I'd interrupted something important. "Yolina, you made it." That was it. No hug, no "I'm glad you're here." Just "you made it." Like I'd shown up uninvited. Again. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Miss Carter. This is Harold Finch. I was your grandmother's attorney." Attorney. I didn't even know she had one. "I need to meet with you privately," he said. "And please, don't tell anyone in your family about this call." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Is something wrong?" I asked. "No," he replied. "Something is very right." I had no idea that call was about to flip my entire life upside down. No idea that 15 years of silence were about to collide with one very carefully kept secret. And I definitely didn't know that 11 months later I'd be standing at the front door of the one place they never invited me to, waiting for 23 people who had no clue the house they love's no longer theirs. There are phone calls you forget by the next day. And then there are phone calls that split your life clean in two. Before the call. After the call. This was the second kind. 3 weeks after my grandmother's funeral, I sat in my Raleigh apartment staring at my phone like it had personally betrayed me. Still no word from my mother. No follow-up. No "did you get home safe?" Nothing. So, when that unknown number lit up my screen, I almost didn't answer. Almost. Miss Carter. This is Harold Finch. I represented your grandmother, Vivian Carter. I remember gripping the edge of my kitchen counter. I didn't know Grandma had a lawyer, I said. She did? He replied. And she left very specific instructions regarding you. And before we go any further, he added, please don't tell anyone in your family about this call. My heart started racing. That's not something people say unless something big is coming. Is something wrong? I asked. No, Miss Carter, he said calmly. Something is very right. That sentence stuck to me like static. The next morning, I drove downtown to his office. Brick building. Old, school. The kind of place that smells like leather chairs, dust, and decisions that don't get reversed. Harold Finch was older than I expected. Silver hair, sharp eyes. The calm confidence of a man who's watched families tear themselves apart over money. He shook my hand and gestured for me to sit. Thank you for coming, Miss Carter. I sat. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. He slid an envelope across the desk. Your grandmother asked me to give you this before we discuss anything legal. Cream. Colored paper. My name written in shaky cursive. Grandma's handwriting. I opened it carefully, like it might fall apart if I rushed. My dearest Yolena, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But before I left, I needed to make something right. My vision blurred. Before I finished the first paragraph, she wrote about the Sundays I visited, the phone calls I made just to hear her voice, the nights I stayed when she was scared to sleep alone. Then the line that broke me. You are the only one who never asked me for anything. I hadn't realized how invisible I'd been. Until someone finally saw me. At the bottom of the letter, she wrote, so I'm leaving you everything. I looked up slowly. Everything? I whispered. Harold nodded. The beach house, he said. All of it. The room went silent. The beach house. I repeated. The place my family spent every Christmas without me. The house worth over $2 million. The house my mother had been circling like a vulture for decades. Yes, he said. She transferred full ownership to you. The deed, the property, all assets tied to it. He leaned forward slightly. She prepared this will 5 years ago. Updated it twice. Specifically to prevent contestation. Ironclad. I sat there holding that letter like it was the only solid thing in the room. 15 years of exclusion. 15 years of silence. And suddenly I had the one thing they all wanted. Harold cleared his throat. Miss Carter, I need to ask, do you want me to notify your family about the will? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I thought about Christmas nights alone. About Instagram photos posted without me. About showing up to a funeral late because no one bothered to tell me the time changed. 15 years. No, I said finally. Not yet. Harold didn't look surprised. She predicted that, he said. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a smaller envelope. Sealed with wax. She told me that if you said those exact words, I was to give you this. I opened it. Inside was one line, written in Grandma's familiar hand. I knew you'd need time. Take it, but when you're ready, show them who you are. How long does the transfer take? I asked. With your cooperation, Harold said, about 3 weeks. And if I want it kept quiet? He smiled just a little. I've been doing this for 40 years, Miss Carter. I know how to be discreet. I stood up. Then let's begin. That was the moment everything changed. For the next 11 months, I lived 2 lives. And my family had no idea that the house they were planning to celebrate Christmas in already belonged to me. People think patience is weakness. They think if you don't react right away, you're scared. They're wrong. Sometimes patience isn't hesitation, it's strategy. I waited 11 months. On paper, nothing about my life changed. I still woke up every morning in my Raleigh apartment. Still went to work. Still answered emails and sat through meetings and ate lunch alone at my desk. To everyone else, I was just Yolena Carter, quiet, reliable, easy to overlook. But underneath that ordinary routine, something else was happening. I was becoming the legal owner of a $2.3 million beach house that my family didn't know they'd already lost. February. I signed the final paperwork. Harold Finch slid a folder across the desk and handed me a small ring of keys. It's official, he said. The property is legally yours. I stared at the keys. They were heavier than they looked. Not because of the metal but because of what they represented. Access, control, choice. 3 things I'd never had with my family before. Easter came and went. No invitation. I didn't expect one. July. I opened Instagram during my lunch break and there it was again. My family at the beach house. My mother raising a champagne glass. My sister blowing out birthday candles on the deck. My cousin's kids running through the living room. My living room. They didn't know that yet. I saved every photo, not out of spite. Documentation. September. I was checking my email when I saw something strange. A forwarded message from Aunt Patty. She'd accidentally sent it to me instead of the family group chat I was never part of. It was from my mother. Mom's beach house needs maintenance. I'm scheduling a contractor next month. I'll handle the bill. I stared at the screen. She was scheduling renovations on my house. Without asking, without permission, without knowing, I called Harold. What do I do? I asked. Nothing, he said. Keep the receipts. Receipts? She's improving your asset for free. October. The contractor came. New roof shingles. Fresh paint on the deck. Upgraded kitchen appliances. My mother spent $12,000 renovating a house that legally belonged to me. I kept every invoice. By November I wasn't just waiting, I was planning. Carefully. Quietly. Every move intentional. December 23rd. I boarded a flight to North Carolina with a single carry-on. Inside it clothes, toiletries, and a folder thick with legal documents. 15 years of silence compressed into paper. 1 week before Christmas I made a phone call. Dare County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to report a potential trespassing situation, I said. There was a pause. I own a property in the Outer Banks. I have reason to believe multiple individuals will attempt to enter without permission on December 24th. Can you prove ownership? The deputy asked. I have the deed. The will, tax records. All notarized. Another pause. That's thorough. I've had 11 months. We agreed to meet Christmas Eve morning. He'd verify the documents. And if everything checked out, he'd be there when they arrived. Before hanging up, he hesitated. Mom, are you sure about this? Family situations can get complicated. I smiled. My family's been using my property for 15 years without my consent. I'd say it already is. The night before I flew out, my phone buzzed. Aunt Patty. The only relative who ever asked why I wasn't at Christmas. Yelena, she said carefully. I just wanted to check on you. I'm okay, I replied. A pause. I always wondered why you were never there, she admitted. Diane says you prefer to be alone, but, Aunt Patty, I said softly. You'll understand soon. She went quiet. What are you planning? I smiled for the first time in months. Just showing up for once. That night, I packed my bag and went to sleep. Tomorrow, I would stop being invisible. Tomorrow, they'd arrive expecting tradition. Some places remember you. Even when the people inside pretend you don't exist. I arrived at the beach house the evening of December 23rd. The sun was setting over the Outer Banks, washing the sky in orange and bruised purple. Wind off the water carried that sharp salt smell I hadn't realized I'd missed. I stood at the front door for a second longer than necessary. Not because I was scared, because this was the last moment this house belonged to my past. The key Harold gave me slid into the lock. Turned smoothly, opened clean. My mother's old key wouldn't work anymore. I stepped inside. The house smelled the same. Salt. Old wood. Cinnamon. I stood in the entryway and let the silence settle. The last time I'd been here, I was 23. Uninvited. Unwanted. I'd left before breakfast, carrying the kind of shame you don't know how to name yet. Now, I owned every square inch. I walked through the living room. The stone fireplace. The couch where they'd taken 100 Christmas photos without me. The kitchen, new countertops, shiny appliances my mother had paid for without realizing she was upgrading my future. Upstairs, the bedrooms. Rooms that held memories of holidays I'd only ever seen through screens. On the mantel, I found it. A framed photo from 3 years ago. 23 people in matching red sweaters. Smiling, laughing. Grandma Vivian sat in the center. I wasn't in the picture. I never was. I picked it up and studied it. My mother's hand rested possessively on Grandma's shoulder. Meredith stood close, confident, secure. No space left. There never had been. I set the frame down on the coffee table. They'd see it tomorrow. They'd remember exactly where they were standing when everything shifted. In Grandma's bedroom, I found something else. A smaller frame. One I'd never seen before. It was me and her, sitting on this porch, laughing at something long forgotten. She'd kept it by her bed. Hidden, I placed it on the mantel, front and center. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be invisible anymore. Christmas Eve, 7:00 a.m. I woke up to the sound of waves crashing outside the window. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered today. I showered slowly, dried my hair, opened my suitcase. I'd packed one outfit for this moment. A deep burgundy cashmere sweater. Grandma's color. She used to say red was for people who refused to disappear. I put it on. Light makeup. Classic red lipstick, the shade she always wore. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the girl who'd been erased. I saw someone ready. At 80:30 my phone rang. "Ms. Carter, this is Deputy Webb. I'm on my way." "Thank you," I said. "I'll have everything ready." I laid the documents across the dining table. The will, the deed, tax records showing 11 months of payments, contractor invoices, and 23 eviction notices, one for every adult who thought this house belonged to them. Deputy Marcus Webb arrived at 10, tall, calm, mid-40s. The kind of man who'd seen every version of family drama and didn't flinch anymore. He reviewed everything carefully. "This all checks out," he said finally. "You really own this place." "I do. And they don't know. They will soon." He hesitated. "Once this happens, there's no going back." I thought about 15 Christmases. I've never been more sure of anything. At 11:47 a.m., the first car turned onto the gravel road. Then Meredith's white Range Rover. Then more. Car after car. Suitcases, gifts, decorations. 23 people arriving like they owned the place. I watched from the upstairs window as they poured out, laughing, planning, claiming rooms. My mother strode toward the door, keys jangling. Confidence radiating off her like she still controlled everything. She didn't notice the patrol car parked discreetly behind the trees. She didn't notice me. Not yet. I walked downstairs. Each step creaked under my feet. This time, I wasn't trying to be quiet. This time, I was opening the door. There's a very specific sound when a lie finally runs out of room. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's the sound of a key. That doesn't work. I stood just inside the front door. Fire crackling behind me. Cinnamon in the air, my hand resting casually on the doorframe. Outside I heard my mother's keys jingle. Then the click. Then nothing. She frowned. "What the?" "Richard, the lock isn't working." She tried again. Harder this time. Nothing. I opened the door. The look on her face that moment when her brain hadn't caught up to her eyes yet. That's the image I'll carry for the rest of my life. She froze. Key still in her hand. Mouth half open. "Yelena." Her voice cracked like she'd said a name she wasn't supposed to remember. "Good morning, Mom." I didn't step aside. I didn't invite her in. Behind her, Meredith pushed forward. "What are you doing here?" "I live here?" A laugh escaped my mother, short, nervous. "Don't be ridiculous. This is my mother's house." I said. "It's mine now." 23 people stood frozen on the porch. Suitcases mid-air, kids quiet. Wind cutting through the space where certainty used to be. Meredith stepped closer. "You changed the locks." "Yes." "You can't do that?" "I already did." That's when Deputy Webb stepped into view. Badge visible. Hands relaxed. "Good morning," he said calmly. "I'm Deputy Marcus Webb." My mother turned sharply. "Why is there a police officer here?" "I asked him to come," I said. "There is no situation." My mother snapped. "This is a family matter?" "With respect, ma'am," the deputy said. "It's a property matter." He turned slightly toward me. "Ms. Carter is the legal owner of this residence." The words spread through the group like electricity. Aunts whispering. Uncles shifting. Meredith grabbing her husband's arm like the ground had moved. "That's impossible," Meredith said. "Grandma would never." "She did." I held out the folder, the will, the deed, signed, notarized, Filed. My mother snatched it from my hands. Her face drained line by line as she read. No, no. She was confused. She wasn't in her right mind. Her voice rose. She had dementia? Her doctor confirmed she was cognitively sound. I said. And the will was prepared 5 years ago. Updated twice. Aunt Patty stepped forward, hand over her mouth. Vivian left it to Yelena. Yes, I said softly. She did. Deputy Webb stepped forward. Ms. Carter's ownership is verified. I've reviewed the documentation personally. Richard cleared his throat. We've been using this house for 15 years. I met his eyes. Without my consent. I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of papers. These are eviction notices. Gasps. One for each adult present. I began handing them out. You have 30 minutes to remove belongings from your vehicles. After that, remaining on this property will be considered trespassing. It's Christmas Eve! Someone shouted. You could have talked to us. We had 15 years to talk, I said. You never called. My mother exploded. You manipulated her? You poisoned her against us. When was the last time you visited her? I asked. She stopped. I visited her every Sunday for 5 years, I continued. When was the last time you came when you didn't want something? Silence. Then she said it. The sentence that cracked everything open. Because every time I look at you, she said, voice shaking, I see your father. The air left the porch. You mean David Carter, I said. The man you married. The man you erased. Richard looked stunned. What are you talking about? Aunt Patty whispered. You excluded her, because of him. You punished a child. Aunt Patty said, voice sharp now, for having her father's eyes. My mother broke, not into apology, not into remorse. Just justification. I couldn't look at her. She said. I turned to Deputy Webb. Please give them 30 minutes, he nodded. You heard her, folks. Cars began to load. Suitcases dragged back. Doors slammed. As my mother stood there, unmoving, she whispered, please. I met her eyes. You had 15 years to say that. Then I stepped back, and closed the door. Closing the door didn't end the moment. It just forced everyone to feel it. I leaned against the door, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Outside, engines started. Through the window, I watched them leave. Cars pulling away slowly. Gravel crunching under tires. Laughter gone. Tradition dissolved. 15 years of certainty driving off in 6 SUVs. Then I heard a knock, not loud. Careful. Yelena, a voice said. It's Patty. I opened the door. Aunt Patty stood alone on the porch. Everyone else was gone. May I? She asked softly. I stepped aside. I should have spoken up, she said once we were inside. I ask every year why you weren't there. Diane always had an answer. She swallowed. I believed her. Because it was easier. The same word again. Easier. She handed me a folded note. Vivian gave me these 2 months before she passed. Inside, Grandma's handwriting. Make sure Yelena knows she wasn't imagining things. My hands shook. She saw everything. Patty whispered. She wanted you to know you were never crazy. For the first time that day I cried. Not quietly. Not politely. But fully. Deputy Webb approached later. That took courage, he said. No, I replied. It took preparation. He smiled. Sometimes they're the same. That night, the house felt different. Not haunted. Not heavy. Just quiet. I moved the family photo from the coffee table and placed it face down in a drawer. The photo of Grandma and me stayed on the mantel, the only picture in this house that ever included me. I didn't win anything that day. I reclaimed something. Choice. Being alone didn't hurt anymore, because this time, it was my choice. Silence can feel peaceful until it suddenly isn't. 3 days after Christmas, my phone came back to life. Not one message. Not 2. Dozens. Group chats I'd never been part of before now lighting up like I'd always belonged there. Funny how that works. What you did was cruel. It was Christmas. You embarrassed your mother. Grandma would be ashamed. Message after message. Some angry. Some judgmental. Some pretending to care. None apologetic. But mixed in with the noise, there were others. Quieter ones. Unexpected ones. Yelena, I honestly didn't know you weren't invited. I thought you chose to be alone. I should have checked on you. I'm sorry. That sentence hit harder than the insults. Because it confirmed something I'd suspected for years. The story about me had been written without me. For 15 years, my mother controlled the narrative. She told everyone I liked my space, that I was independent, that I preferred being alone. And they believed her, because questioning would have meant conflict. And silence is easier than accountability. Richard called on New Year's Eve. I almost didn't answer. Almost. I didn't know, he said. I should have checked, I replied. A long pause. I trusted her, he admitted.
Yes,
I said quietly, and that was the problem. My mother called a week later. Different number. Same tone. Sweet, careful, strategic. We've had a misunderstanding, she said. Maybe we can work something out. The house, I asked.
yes.
Numb. Silence. Then anger. I'm still your mother, she said. And you spent 15 years acting like I wasn't your daughter. I blocked her number. For the first time in my life, I ended the conversation. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're protection. And I was done bleeding for people who never noticed the mess. In February, I made a choice. I packed up my apartment, got approval to work remotely, and I moved into the beach house, my house, not to prove anything, not to spite anyone, but because for the first time I wanted to live somewhere I wasn't pretending to belong. Some doors closed forever. Others cracked open slowly. And for the first time, I chose which ones mattered. I used to think forgiveness meant pretending nothing happened. I don't believe that anymore. Sometimes forgiveness looks like distance, and healing looks like choosing yourself. This year, I hosted Christmas. Not for 23 people. Not for tradition, not for obligation. For 4. Aunt Patty arrived first, carrying a casserole dish and a bottle of wine. Vivian's recipe, she said. I found it in her cookbook. 2 friends from Raleigh showed up next. The women who sat with me through lonely holidays when my own family didn't. And then Marcus, a coworker who had nowhere else to go. When I invited him, he looked shocked. You barely know me. I know what it's like to be alone on Christmas, I said. No one should feel that way if they don't want to. 4 people around a table meant for 12. Candles lit. Fire crackling. Laughter that didn't require permission. On the mantel sat one photo. Me and Grandma Vivian. The only image in that house that ever included me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be included. I already was. Later that night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone on the porch. Waves crashing. Stars scattered like spilled sugar. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who shrank herself, hoping someone would notice. She didn't need to shrink, they just refused to look. Some people don't want to see you. And no amount of silence will make them change. So stop watering dead plants. Stop knocking on locked doors. Stop begging for seats at tables where you were never meant to sit. Build your own table. On Christmas morning, I found an envelope hidden behind Grandma's photo, cream-colored. My name on the front. Inside, her last message to me. You don't need their approval to have value. You were never invisible. They just chose not to see you. Living true is better than living bitter. I'm proud of you. I pressed the letter to my chest. For the first time, I wasn't angry. I was free. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been the one left out, forgotten, or rewritten, hear this. It wasn't you. And you don't need permission to matter. This Christmas, I wasn't surrounded by everyone. I was surrounded by the right ones. And that made all the difference.